Well, TD, we'll start with your forte, the defense. Coach Rule said this team has to go from good to great on that side of the ball. What do you see from the defense, and what steps do they need to take to go from good to great?
You know, when you look at this defense, I really feel like they have the potential to be a really, really good defense. But the first thing, they have to fill some voids. You know, and the biggest one, Hassan Reddick not being here anymore, we got to find out who's going to be that guy that's going to step up and replace that role. And Yetur Gross-Matos, he's the guy that comes to mind when I think about a guy that has to step up, that has to do a great job of showing what he's capable of, and now he has that opportunity. So hopefully he's going to do that.
All right, we'll talk about linebackers specifically. What do you see from that group?
You know, the linebackers are getting a lot of reps. They're getting a lot of opportunities. Shaq Thompson is sideline right now with some knee stuff right now. But I look at Damian Wilson. I look at them bringing in other guys, just giving them opportunities to get out there. I think the reps for these young players are going to be vital in this point in the season. Like when you look at the preseason process, it's all about learning the defense. And once you are able to learn the defense, you have an opportunity to really go out and showcase your talent. And what better way to do that than taking every rep? And that's what these linebackers are doing right now. And I think it's paying off for them so far.
You mentioned Shaq Thompson. He talked about you the other day after practice. As you said, he's out right now with a knee injury, hopes to be good to go week 1, but he talked about you and the leadership skills that you gave him and just what that relationship meant. So to have a player that's still on this team that references you, to know your impact is still felt within the Panthers organization, what does that mean?
You know, it's a huge feeling, you know, to know that when I came into this league, I had a ton of guys that poured into me and me becoming the leader that I became and the player that I became ultimately. But for me to be able to know that I passed that on, that and it's still going. And that's what it's all about. You know, once the standard has been set within a certain place, it's important for the guys that come along to keep that standard going. And that's what Shaq has been able to do. And he's trying to impress that upon Brian Burns. He's trying to impress it upon Chin. And eventually, as the years continue to roll on, Shaq is going to be like me. He's going to be retired. And he's going to be able to come back and see the legacy that he started with those guys continue to be pushed on. So that's what it's all about.
And speaking of Brian Burns, he said he's trying to step into being more of a leader, getting up at 6 a.m. He said he's not a morning person at all. He actually took over your locker in the locker room. But what kind of season do you expect from Burns?
You know, I think Burns is going to have a phenomenal season. In years past, he had other guys on the opposite side. You know, last year, Hassan Reddick was a guy that took a lot of pressure off. And, you know, we just talked about it. Someone has to step up in that role to help. When teams double-team Brian Burns, they're going to slide the protection to him. And the coaching staff, they're going to have to figure out ways to get him to the quarterback. But he's a dynamic talent. He's a guy that can flat-out go, and we're expecting great things out of him. So I'm looking forward to him having a double-digit sack instead of a nine-sack season.
I know he'll be happy to hear that you said that. No pressure for Burns there getting double-digit sacks. Year 3 under head coach Matt Rule, the term we heard day 1 was urgency. All the players talking about the time is now. They have to get wins. How hot is head coach Matt Rule's seat?
They're talking about it. You know, if it becomes a topic of discussion, I think everybody understands the importance and the sense of urgency that has to take place. And, you know, this team can't stumble out of the blocks. And I think Coach Rule understands that. That's why they went out and they addressed the team's needs. When you look at this team last year, one of the areas that they struggled in the most was the offensive line. We know that they had a ton of injuries along the offensive line, and they went out and they addressed that. And I'm excited about the guys that they brought in. Ultimately, it's going to make this team better. But the biggest key we all know is keeping Christian McCaffrey on the field.
And also made a trade to get Baker Mayfield here. We've got a QB1 competition between him and Sam Darnold. How do you see that playing out?
So when you bring in competition, it brings out the best in everybody. So when I was here, they drafted a linebacker in the first round 3 years. Not 3 consecutive years, but 3 years while I was a player. So whenever you have a guy coming in that you know that has the potential to take your spot, as a competitor, it's going to make you work harder. It's going to make you compete harder. It's going to make you play harder. And that's what it's going to do for Sam Darnold. He's going to look at this situation with Baker Mayfield being here, and it's going to elevate the level of play of both of those guys. So all it does is benefit this team.
And looking at the team overall, trying to get more than 5 wins, trying to get to postseason play, do you think they have the potential? I know you can't predict injuries and that type of thing, but do they have the potential with this roster to go to playoffs?
They absolutely have the potential to get it done. It's just like you just talked about. It's all about staying healthy. It's all about guys being available, being ready to go when the time comes. And, you know, this team coming together, this is the point right now where you really gel. You find out, you know, what kind of continuity you're going to have as a team. You find out what kind of camaraderie you can build. And that's what training camp is about. So hopefully they take advantage of this opportunity. You start to set standards that have to be in place in order to have a successful season. So the process started now, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes together.
All right, at Spartanburg, you've been here many seasons for training camp. Week 1 just wrapped up. How are these guys feeling?
These guys are feeling pretty good, and, rightfully so. Now we're going to find out who the men are on this team. When the pads come on, that's when you really discover, who's about that life and who's not. So that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. You can look at a guy run on air and catch passes and cover people, but when it comes time to make tackles, when it comes time to catch tough passes, knowing that you're going to be hit, those are the guys that separates themselves, that gets to play a lot on Sunday versus the guys that just have a roster spot.
All right, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight. We'll see what the Carolina Panthers do this season.
Stay tuned.